All right. Thank you everyone for coming to the Pillar 2 AIB advisory board meeting. My name is John Silky. I'm one of the chairs. We have a small group today. Happy Election Day here in Maryland. We hope that everybody's gone out to vote or has already voted or will be going out to vote. You might be in line to vote right now. Um, and so I'm going to turn it over to Patricia to help sort of lead some of the conversation that we've been having as a pillar around the career ladder. And this is going to be a very free-flowing, low-key conversation with Patricia, myself, and Justin, and just about some of the things that we're hearing about the career ladder. And yeah, so Patricia, I'm gonna turn it over to you, and you can take it away.
All right, thank you, John. Do we need to do introductions? Everybody knows who we all are. So I'm Patricia Twitty. I teach in Prince George's County. John, I'll toss it back to you, and then you can toss it to Justin.
Awesome. So I'm John Silky, instructional specialist for secondary math in Montgomery County, and we'll pass it to Justin.
Hi, everyone. I am a middle school math coach in Prince George's County, Maryland, and I also teach one class.
Okay, so we have had a lot of conversation around the career ladder, as well as some of the new things and legislation that was just passed around various types of certifications and the transition from certificates to licensures. So today is just kind of a follow-up conversation around some of those things and some of those changes. So the biggest question that we'll start off with is July 2024. Local LEAs are supposed to begin implementing the career ladder. And I know in talking to various people, there's still a lot of questions and unreadiness, particularly, and Justin, I don't know if you have the same question or not, around people who, based off of the description of the career ladder, may be finding themselves in that level 3, but they're not nationally board certified. So that is across the state, teacher specialists, well, maybe not instructional specialists, but math coaches, people who are in those positions that are school-based, but they don't have their national board teaching certification, and just kind of where they fall in everything and all of the changes that are happening.
Yeah, I've definitely had questions around that. As we know, like level one is just every teacher that is out there. Level two is when you start to pursue your national board certification. Level three is when you have your national board certification, and level four are your teacher leader roles. And of course, there are three different levels on that level: the lead teacher, distinguished teacher, and professor distinguished teacher. We definitely have a lot of coaches. Well, you're in Prince George's County, and I'm one of those coaches. I just happen to be national board certified, but in talking to different people, we kind of like dug into the legislation a little bit more, and there's like a distinction between lead distinguished and professor distinguished that was helpful for us. And so sometimes we talk about lead teachers, the legislation says like demonstrations at the school level. So we think about school-based personnel there. But then for distinguished teacher, it talks about leading professional development at the school and local level. So that's where I think kind of my role as a numeracy coach or math coach sort of fits, because I do teach at one building, but I support 4 different buildings in my role as a coach. And I do curriculum writing, assessment writing, things like that. New teacher induction over the summer, and other random professional developments throughout the year. Yeah,
Justin, I don't want to interrupt you, but one of the things that Patricia and I were talking about, so in your role as being national board, and I don't know if any of the schools you're working at are Title I or whatnot, are you eligible for the bonus for being
no,
national board?
and I hate it. No, I'm not. I don't teach a great enough percentage of my time. So the school that I do teach at is on that priority schools list. So if I was national board certified and teaching a full load there, then yes, I would qualify. But
No,
unfortunately,
I'm gonna put you on. I'm gonna be candid and put you on the spot. Has it ever crossed your mind, even though obviously you are doing great work, across the county to think, if I went to this school and taught, a full load, I would be making, an additional, 17,500 or 18,000 because you're national board. And I think that's some of the things that we were talking about, right? Patricia and I were talking about right before you came on.
Has it crossed my mind? I mean, of course it has. I think kind of seeing the long view of what the blueprint promises. I don't think that the way that my role is structured now is the way it's going to be structured forever. And so, while I would, of course, welcome additional compensation, I do think, like in the long term, the way that the career ladder is expected to go, we do look for hybrid roles like that. And so, what I think I am enjoying more than the money is the chance to kind of see what it's like and what it's like to have that kind of a dual role, because I think there's a lot of learning that school systems have to do in that regard. I don't think we're ready to just jump in right away and say, okay, now everybody who's a coach, now you're a coach and a teacher. I think there's a lot of learning to be done, to rebalance the roles and figure out, like, the intricacies of how that's going to work. So I enjoy that I'm trying it out and that I can give feedback to my supervisor and to HR and about how that's going.
Yeah, the thing that I wonder, and I mean, Patricia can share in your thoughts. What I was sharing beforehand is like in Montgomery County, we are potentially losing people who would be great coaches because of the money situation. They are staying at the schools or choosing to stay at the schools, or in some cases, going back to schools full time because of this massive bonus that they get in that role. And so I struggle with in creating a policy to want to have strong teachers and national board teachers in Title I schools. Did we inadvertently prevent people from pursuing roles as coaches, or even we talked about like administrators? Because when you go into those roles, you don't get that bonus.
I don't think we've missed out on that. I think that we're doing what we should be doing, which is trying to make sure that I guess the way that you framed it first was, are we losing out on people who could be going into coaching? But I think what we've seen historically, for decades, is we've lost out on people who are good teachers, like people directly in front of students, primarily responsible and accountable for student performance. And I think that's the bigger loss that we've dealt with for decades in our school systems. And because of that compounded like brain drain of talent, we see that we don't have the mentorship in schools that we need for newer teachers. We see we don't have the specialists to provide like that extra type of instruction that new teachers might not be able to, or not just might not be aware of, because they don't have the experience. And so I think rather than framing it as like we're losing out on having some coaches, because that's going to come with time. That's going to come with the full rollout of the career ladder. I think what we're seeing is that, I guess based on your examples, we're not losing out on as many teachers as we could have, as we have in the past. That's kind of how I see it.
I mean, that's fair. And Patricia, I mean, weigh in because you talked about you're in elementary. You
Right. So
can't.
I think
You're not in
my
a situation where you could get national board. So
Right. So I think my situation is a little different from Justin because I am elementary math. And so there is no national board certification for elementary mathematics. And I don't feel that I have strong enough knowledge in the science and social studies curriculum to venture out and say, okay, I'm gonna do national board as a generalist here too. Although Rachel did give me some insight that I'll have to look into as far as the math piece, but I don't teach. I think it's 11 to 13 year olds or something like that for the math one. But I do understand the intent, and I think it's just maybe part of that transition, right? So the idea is to keep those most effective teachers in the classroom, in front of students, face to face with them. And so I think that's just a point in education where everybody has to kind of evaluate where they want to fall within this career ladder. And if coaches is what you want to do, then you go get your national board teaching certification and you miss out on a couple dollars. Or, you go back in the classroom and you have that opportunity to impact students there. So I think there's just a lot, and it's new and it's still being unpacked. I think from just the people that I've heard from, we just want to know. So for people who fall in these gray areas right now, what does that mean? What is that going to look like? By this time, you need to have X, Y, and Z, or are you going to tell me on June 15th, nope, you don't have this and you're no longer in this position? So I think that's a lot of the uncomfortableness, is just
Right.
no one is being clear about the process.
So, and I want Justin to chime in because I want to piggyback on that. I think I would imagine we don't have enough principals, assistant principals who are, potentially national board to say on July 15th, okay, all principals are, you don't have national board, you're out of these positions or things like that. Justin, is somebody who's been, on the AIB, can you share a little light or insight on sort of the rollout process and what it's going to look like? And will current administrators be grandfathered in to certain points on the career ladder, or how is that all going to work?
So I guess I'll say first that everything that's not specifically stated is negotiable. So I'm saying this as somebody who is a member of my board of directors for our union. So it's there's nothing that is that the AIB is saying like, oh, you have to do it this particular way, this particular rollout, this particular. We're not doing that prescriptive unless that's what is stated in the law. And so for people who are currently in positions, I'm going to talk about teachers first and administrative later. But teachers who are in coaching positions and things like that right now, the blueprint doesn't say all those people are fired right or have to go immediately back into the classroom right away. It doesn't say that. What it says is that if you want to be a teacher leader who's earning this compensation, who's considered to be on level whatever or level 4 on the career ladder, then there are some requirements that you have to have, which include national board certification. That's what it says. But it doesn't say that, if you are in a coaching position that you're losing your job effective July 1st. So I think that part of it is that we have to have a conversation. We have to work together, like, LEAs and, the bargaining units need to communicate about how they're going to transition into the goals of the blueprint. Now, as it relates to administrators, yeah, you're absolutely right. We definitely don't have enough national board certified administrators, but I don't think their deadline isn't July 1st of this year. Like it's multiple years away. And even then, there's provisions in the law regarding exceptions, which we have not discussed. We haven't discussed how that would play out and how we regulate that, but the law does grant, I guess, the AIB the prerogative, I don't know, to come up with rules and guidelines around when there might be exceptions that are granted for administrators, probably people who are already in the field and maybe have like a couple years left or something.
Is there any sense of when some of that information would be, planned on sharing?
Give me the hard question. I mean, I don't think so. As far as the principal one, that deadline is multiple years away. So I don't think that's something that's about to be discussed now. As it relates to the upcoming July 1 deadline, what LEAs have been told is that levels 1, 2, and 3 are due July 1. But levels 1, 2, and 3 are kind of what I said in the beginning of the meeting. Like, we kind of know what those things are already. That's not any of the teacher leadership roles. They're not due. Now, if it were me, and if I was, a superintendent of schools, I would use this time to kind of think very critically, this upcoming school year, to think very critically about what that's going to look like July 1 of next year when it comes time to submit that plan. Because what you don't want to do is just put something in your plan that's not realistic or practical. And so me, lowly classroom teacher here, but me, if I was running a school system, I would say, okay, who are the people who are national board certified, or people who are in these kind of roles now? What's that looking like for them? How could we try out some different things? How can we pilot some ideas in the next, 10 months, 12 months, and figure out what was going to be the best thing to write down in our implementation plan, July 1, 2025.
So I hear you, like even principals and APs are 2 years away. But I think so as somebody personally who literally got got an invitation Thursday to apply for in Montgomery County. We have our AP pool, right? I'm applying for the AP pool. I'm not nationally board certified right now. So could that influence whether, a school is looking at, like, let's say I get into the pool and a school wants to hire. On one hand, a school could think, I see John and Patricia are two equal candidates, but Patricia has national board and John doesn't. Well, I don't know what's going to happen in 2 years on the situation.
I think there's always been differences in how people are credentialed for years, right? And so, like, if I was an area superintendent, or what we call instructional directors, or if I was in charge of hiring a principal for a school or hiring an assistant principal for a school, I would be thinking about all the qualifications that they have. And national board is a credential that people have held for years, and so it could have been that when you're looking at two equal candidates for years, you could have said, oh, they're equal, but this one has national board certification. I might go with that one. And I don't think that's changed. But I also don't think that there's enough people in the pipeline for AP pools and for principal pools where it's not going to be, like, let's say there's 20 vacancies. I mean, I know Montgomery County is a big district, so that might be kind of high.
And they have about 20 something vacancies in
Okay,
principal.
good.
Yeah.
Good. So if there's 20 vacancies, right? Well, it's not like you're going to see all of the candidates except two have national board certification, right? So I think that over time, yes, hopefully we would like to see administrators who have committed to, I guess, investing in their professional development as a practicing classroom teacher, as a practicing educator, and through the national board process. We would like to see that over time, but I don't think that we're going to see that now. I don't think that they have I don't think the bench is deep enough for that to be a limiting factor in administrators. And I would love to be wrong. I haven't seen it in my district, to be honest.
So go, Patricia.
So I was just going to say, Justin, what you just said in your earlier statement about what the legislation doesn't say is very vague. And I'm talking across the state, people who are school-based, who are in non-classroom positions. And the feeling is no one is saying anything, which makes nerves and unreadiness, because no one's talking about the teacher specialist in a county who, where do you fall on this, right? And I think, as I have shared, some of the onus is on us, like, it's coming, regardless if they say your grandfather did and you have 3 years to figure that, like, it's coming, right?
Right.
Part of it is like, you need to do your due diligence and say, well, let me investigate this, explore this, let me try for this, because we know that it's coming. I think the unreadiness is just, when is it going to come? And because no one is saying, if you are currently here, like you said, as a superintendent, let me look at all these positions. These 20 people fall in this category. You need to have this done by such and such date or something. And I think that's the unreadiness of it, is that
I 100% agree with that perspective. No, I agree with that. And
okay.
And even to be perfectly transparent with you, in Prince George's County, there's a group of educators were pulled to discuss, like, okay, so what could a career ladder look like, right? And this was when maybe 2 years ago, and one of the recommendations was exactly what you're saying. It was, well, give people timelines and deadlines, and give people that lead time to figure out what it is that they want to do. Now, of course, because all teachers don't always have, the strongest voices in the things that we say and the things that we suggest, it's always going to be the administration's prerogative whether or not they're going to do that. So unfortunately, that's not an AIB thing. That's an individual LEA thing of communicating with their teachers and their employees how they're going to affect or change their job titles. That we can't do that.
Right.
I think we should. I mean, I honestly, like I said, I said that like 2 years ago. I said that before I was even on the AIB. So I'm not even disagreeing with you in the least.
Rachel,
I saw
Yeah, I think I can chime in on a couple of these things just from conversations we have around the state. And I think, Patricia, you made the point that it is around the state that the questions are coming up. And to Justin's response, a lot of it is, if it's not specifically stated in law, it's up to each individual county to negotiate and to have those conversations in their counties. We're getting good questions around the state about that are helping us identify areas that we need to dig deeper on and that we need to maybe revisit. And so this year, to Justin's point, figuring out 1 to 3 on the career ladder isn't so bad. With, most of that's kind of known. We have just a handful of districts that are looking at 4, and we have several districts that are doing some pilots to try to get a sense of, well, what does 60/40 look like, and what does what are the teacher leadership roles? The pilots are going to extend into next year for several of the districts, and we're really eager to see what those pilots help us understand about this transition. I think this entire conversation is like it paints the picture of what I've been saying for a couple months. We're in the messy middle, and it's just really messy. We can't go full on career ladder because it's not time yet. We haven't built the structures to get there, but then that leaves this uncertainty of like, well, what's going to happen and what should I do and which path should I take? So we work with a lot of different agencies like MAESP, MASSP, our administrator organizations. And what I recommend to principals is, in some parts of this, you have to take a look at your own self as an employee in the system, but then also you have to look at your seat of growing leaders that are coming. So you're encouraging teachers in their path. When I was a principal, they'd come and say, I don't know what I want to get my master's in, or should I get my national boards? And you have that opportunity to guide. I will say, like a year and a half ago, it was more of the why national boards. And finally, my answer became, it is the law of the land in Maryland. The first year, it was, let me tell you about national boards, because I am nationally board certified. But now it's, okay, this is the law. If you're talking to a younger educator in their career, it's the wise way to recommend that somebody pursue the double great is to do a master's program that gets you your national boards in the process. But then for principals, I encourage folks to really think about it. It's a credibility piece to your folks to be able to check and say, I know instruction. Like I've done the teaching and learning side of it, but it's not going to make sense for every principal right now because they don't know when the career ladder is going to be fully in place and when the AIB will say the career ladder is in place and therefore principals have to be nationally board certified. It's going to take time to get there. But I think just owning the fact and telling folks that we get it, that there's a lot of angst around this, and that we are working with districts and we are working with everybody involved in this to try to ensure that there's common ground. Like even between unions and LEAs, we've had some good convenings to get people on the same page, use the same terminology, and ask the same questions. So work is happening, but that doesn't always trickle down so that everybody knows that that's happening. So I typically, last point here, encourage folks, reach out to your blueprint coordinators. And I'm sorry, they're my dear friends. I work with them a lot, but maybe don't reach out like everybody. Maybe have some lead person reach out and talk to them about what's happening in the county. If you're feeling like you don't have enough information of what's happening in local jurisdictions, the blueprint coordinators can help explain where things are. And we are working to increase communication about these things to try to reduce the angst, because building this is taking a lot of talk, conversation, collaboration, and then also there's a little bit of trial and error, right? Like we've had to come back and say, what's going to work? What do we need to revisit? So it is tricky. And I think that's the biggest piece I want to say is that it's the messy middle, it's uneasy. And but the questions are welcome. And that's how we're going to be able to build something great that can work.
Okay. All right. Any final thoughts on this one? And then I wanted to move on to some chatter about the new licensures and the impact, or how do you think that will support recruitment and retention of our beloved profession? So anyone have any closing thoughts on the career ladder? Or
I guess one thing I'll say is I hope we kind of see the vision first and then kind of figure out how to get there. I think that's the biggest thing for people. I don't think that the vision has been as well communicated to people as needed. And so I think that contributes to the angst because people are like, we have to do this for what? Like, and I think that's where people get, upset as well because you don't see why it might be necessary. But if we understand why it was written the way it was written, then maybe we can figure out like, okay, this is going to work, but this is not going to work. And kind of like what Rachel was saying, like that part's important too. Like to say, well, this is the goal. These are the things you're saying to get there. I think this piece is going to work, but I think it needs to be tweaked a little bit. I think this piece is not going to work at all. It should be changed for this. I think I'm anxious to have those kind of conversations and just move the work forward that way.
Okay, John, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yes, sorry, I had muted myself because of my dog. The only thing that I'm going to bring up, and I know it sounds like a broken record, but I think that too oftentimes in policy, when we make policy, we don't consider what are the potential like unintended consequences or impacts of making a policy in the right direction. And yes, a lot of the things that we've said we want to do. Justin, you're absolutely right. The normal trend has been you're a good teacher after 2 to 3 years. Let's move you into administration. Let's move you out of the classroom. So wanting to keep more teachers in the classroom, absolutely, we need to do that. Trying to encourage teachers to pursue national board certification, absolutely. All of those things make sense. But my fear, and I know I've expressed this more than once, is that we're not considering these unintended consequences that come out of those policies and what is happening at the LEA level. And, Rachel, you brought up a point. I know that the three of us here know who our blueprint coordinators are because we're pretty active in the blueprint. But I really wonder the Algebra 2 teacher at a school who's working at a school if they know who their blueprint coordinator is for the district.
So let me make a quick plug. aib.maryland.gov, implementation plan page, LEA plan, and there's a tab right there that everybody can find. Then we keep that updated if they do change. But you're right, they may not be known down to every educator in the county knowing who that is. But to that point too, John, I also encourage that all of our educators skim the plans that were submitted March 15th and May 1st. Those are also on our website to know, and then reach out. Like, you don't have to pour over them the way that we do, but know them and reach out. Or even if there's an interest area, now's the time to chime in and say, I'd love to have voice. I'd love to be a part of a committee, or could I join a committee? So those are also on our webpage.
And John, I'll say even like I have been sending emails constantly about the blueprint to the teachers I work with, like, y'all need to read this, y'all need to pay attention. Legislation is coming, things are changing. So I think just, I do feel like part of the onus is on us, and we've heard it, we hear it. It was discussed at the last legislative session. And so I do think part of it is on us as educators to make sure that we are abreast about what is happening within our own profession so that we're not so blindsided. John, I like to think
that's fair. So speaking of that,
one of the unintended consequences will be like all of these teachers in Maryland are going to get their national board teaching certifications. And then where is all the money going to come from? Because if we have, 130,000 teachers in the state of Maryland that are nationally board certified, I think that's a better way of looking at some of the unintended consequences that could come, like then we'd all get these great salary increases and it would just be wonderful. So I think that would be
although I think that, and I don't know this personally for me, but there's no money trees, right? And so as I think that what a lot of districts are dealing with now that we've had these increasing salaries, then you have to cut somewhere, and you have to cut positions, whether it's in central office, whether it's, I've heard just from some discussions, the difference in my county between my county council and our budget right now is about $40 million.
Mm-hmm.
And that could lead to true fact, one of the responses from our county has been, okay, we're going to increase class sizes in middle school math. The class sizes are like the maximum class sizes are going to go from 28 to 33. So there are, like, yes, teachers need to be paid. Yes, they need to be paid more. Yes, we need to have everybody be national board and ideally be able to pay them this extra stipend. But if we get in that boat, we need to be able to back it up with the finances. And I say we, meaning the state and the local districts, because if we can't, then what? Then you're stuck. But
So-
Patricia,
Let me just, if I can transition us to the next
Yes.
topic, just because we don't
Yes.
have that much time left anymore.
that's what I wanted to do. Yep.
So part of our pillar 2 is about the recruiting and maintaining highly qualified teachers. And I think we talked about this a little bit back in February, that we all probably know teachers who have taken the Praxis assessment multiple times, especially when they added the new, I believe it's a new reading assessment, that multiple teachers are having hard times passing them. So they just, this past April 1st, they came out with some new legislation around those different types of licensure. So just trying to get everyone's feedback around, how do you feel, is that supporting recruiting and maintaining a high quality, diverse workforce, or what are some thoughts around some of those different levels and phases? Anybody want to jump in?
Justin, I'll let you go. You're on mute, Justin.
Thank you. I'm still trying to compose my thoughts on that topic, but I guess I'll say, as with the discussion with the career ladder, like everything is kind of has a long horizon, and any kind of changes to licensure and to certification and things like that are going to affect the teaching core in the long term, right? And so I think that there's a tension for me between the way that we change regulations in a sense to bolster the candidate pipeline, and also while also maintaining teacher quality. And so I think there's a tension there that is worth exploring. And I think that over the long term, if things go the way they should go, that it'll probably be like a continuous conversation. But like, what's the best way to show that someone is prepared to teach in the classroom?
Okay. John, do you have any thoughts?
So I agree with Justin on the tension. My fear is districts or even states will reach out to one or two quick reports and then run with that as what they want to do. So, for example, I know there was a report, I forget who did it, but it was out of Massachusetts, that talked about how during the pandemic, emergency certified teachers, the scores for emergency certified teachers on tests were at least equal to those that were certified. And so hearing that, a state or district could implicitly think, okay, it's okay to have, conditionally certified or go through that path because, hey, look at this report. This report showed that they're the same. I've also, at University of Maryland, we were one of the first universities in the state to start having teacher candidates complete the EdTPA as a portfolio assessment. And while the EdTPA has gotten some pushback on its rigor and whatnot, it's directly aligned to National Board. And so if we're trying to prepare candidates into that direction, it kind of makes sense for teacher candidates to do sort of a practice version of national board as teacher candidates going into, and then thinking 4 or 5 years down the line. That being said, I hope that some of the certification process gives a little bit more flexibility and not necessarily making a very stringent line on a certain passing score or cut score and saying you can be in the classroom and you can't be in the classroom. So that I appreciate with the way that the different certification licensures are set up, because there are a lot of areas where we definitely need teachers. So that's kind of the way that I see it.
So I think as I've expressed, I know many teachers across the state who have struggled for whatever reason to make the Maryland score for the praxis exams. And so I feel providing another avenue or another opportunity for them to be certified is excellent and is great, because they're expensive to have to continuously pay to take and pass these certifications and these exams. I do kind of feel some of the pause, because as I shared, I feel like I'm an educator by calling, and everyone is not designed to be an educator. And there's oftentimes, it works in the schedule of life. Let me just go teach. And I do believe that there is a passion, there's the pedagogy to being an effective teacher. And it's not just someone who has a degree or someone who is just in front of students. So I do applaud that they're providing other ways for effective teachers who may struggle with these assessments to stay on a track to be licensed. But I do understand the pause of respecting the educational profession for what it is, and really not just putting anybody in front of students to teach, because we've all read 1 year of an ineffective teacher could have a lifetime of an impact to students. So, but I mean, as Ms. Baldwin says all the time, it's not a teacher shortage, because a shortage would imply that all of a sudden there's going to be this large pool of teachers coming back. And I just don't see that in this era that we live. So I think that I think there's some pros and some cons to some of the new legislation that just passed with that piece. Anybody else have any thoughts they'd like to summarize up in our last 15 minutes?
Nothing for me on my end, and I unfortunately have to. I'm going to make this crew even a little smaller because I'm being called. So one thought could be, since we are a small group, maybe we end the meeting a little early, because I feel like we've had lots of good discussion. For me, I think that, as with anything new, there's always things that are going to evolve over time. And as somebody who's on the board, on an advisory board, but also, my hope for some of the AIB is that we continue to try to get as much clear communication as possible. And I go back to something with Justin, the same thing that Patricia pointed out that Justin talked about. I want to point out is that, sometimes in policies, having vagueness can be a good thing because it allows for flexibility, but it can also, I think, lead to more anxiety when you're not really sure what you're supposed to do and when the deadlines are. And so maybe as a board, helping others share information. And Rachel, to one of your points, and I don't know, again, I'm as a member of this advisory board, I receive the emails when the AIB meetings are. Unfortunately, they're always in the middle of a day, for better or for worse. So teachers can't really participate unless you're going to take a day or things. And yes, I know they're virtual, but still. So a recommendation for the board is, are there ways that you can have certain meetings or certain topics, especially maybe related to Pillar 2 Career Ladder, have something more in the evening, or have it on a day when we know there's, you know, no school, so that more teachers can watch, more teachers can see what's happening live, as opposed to watching the video. And Rachel, to your point, yes, we can give a website and share things, but in this day and age, I think it will be great if, and I don't know if there's a, I don't know if there's a Facebook page, Twitter page, whatever page for the AIB, like making sure that things are getting out more regularly, so that teachers are seeing it and being able to know about it. Because I worry that, decisions are going to be made and the teachers are going to be thinking, wait, I didn't know about this, or how do they, how is this going to impact me, or what do I need to do?
But John, can I just say, based off of what I heard here today, I think that's more so of a challenge for the local LEAs, because even from the AIB standpoint, it's not going to tell you specifically what they're going to do in Talbot County or Montgomery County or Cecil. That's not and that's the information that people want to hear. So maybe the challenge or the suggestion is that the local LEAs kind of have an AIB implementation form or information night or something, so that within that district you can hear more about the implementation and what specific your district is doing, not necessarily from the higher, broader state view. Because as Rachel shared, every plans were due, I want to say May 1st, their second round of implementation plans. So how many people have even looked at your district or another district's implementation plan going forward? So I think that would be something beneficial to suggest to local LEAs, is to have some type of open forum to just have conversations around that implementation plan. Because a lot of those dates and times, 2 years ago, it was, in 2 years, and 2 years has now come. So where are we now? And what does it look like 2 years from now? Because that'll be here real soon.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking about the comment about like the timing of the meetings. I teach a class every day, so like I do have to put in professional leave on those one Thursday a month to attend the meetings during the day. But at the same time, I watch our local school board meetings as well. I don't see a lot of people attending those, even though they're at 7 p.m. So, I guess people probably watch the recordings, but like if I go in person, I do like to go in person sometimes. But when I've gone in person, I don't see a lot of teachers there. It's not like there's standing room only. There's plenty of seats there. And even when you watch things online, like on YouTube or something like that, like it's not like you're seeing a whole bunch of comments or, things going up. I think we have a general, I'm not, this is not like a blaming teachers thing. It's more like teachers are busy, teachers are tired. People don't always have the time to, to invest in attending a meeting in person on that day at a particular time, even if it was at 7 p.m. So I do appreciate that, meetings are streamed, of course, but they're recorded and people do get a chance to watch them when they want to. Because I don't know that changing it to 7 p.m. would have a tremendous amount of more people watching them in that moment. We might do better, and this could be a suggestion as well, to clip relevant pieces and put those out there through social media, like, because people aren't going to sit and listen to the whole 2-hour meeting or whatever, just like they don't for the school board meetings. But, when friends who I have on Facebook or whatever, when they clip the school board meetings and they put them in the teacher Facebook group for our county, and like people will watch that piece, or they'll email just that little clip that's pertinent information. They'll watch, send that out. I think there's some work that we can do in that area, because I think that might be like bite-sized pieces of information. Those might be things that people can absorb more readily.
So I would say both, and because Justin, I can tell you in my county, there's students who feel left out, that they can't go speak and testify in person at a board meeting because the meetings are held during the day. So I think it varies. And what I would say is that you don't know what the impact would be unless you try it. Now, certainly, if we tried an evening meeting of the AIB, the fact that you share that you have to take professional leave because and to be able to attend, right? We don't know what the impact is because we haven't tried it. Now, certainly, if we try it and we don't get as much impact, then sure, you could say, okay, at least we tried it. We got 5 more people or whatever, and we realize it's not the weight of it. But I just think that for something that is so important in impacting teachers across the state, just a thought or consideration.
And John, I would add in there real quick, it may not be that the AIB meetings once a month are the exact thing that we want to be getting them to. We are working as a staff to increase the connections with folks. Our most recent was with school principals in Maryland. Dr. Kerwin offered, he visited with them virtually, and I think what I'm hearing now is we now need to reach to educators. And so with principals, we did it as secondary first, and we dug into pillar 3 because they feel pillar 3 a little bit differently than our elementary folks do. But maybe now we need to think about how do we reach out to our teachers so that the entire meeting is really targeted to them. And then at the end of that one, he stayed on for questions for like an hour. And really, he took all the hard questions too, Justin. He got them just like you did. But I think that's a real a great attribute of our members, that they want to hear the questions, they want to hear the hurdles, they want to hear the successes, but we haven't perhaps found the right opportunity to catch our teachers. So I think, John, maybe that's something we could talk about with the full pillar 2 and come up with some recommendations for the team to consider and bring back. We love to find people who want to talk about Blueprint, know more about Blueprint, and help us make implementation work, right? So that could be another way to get at it, to be able to find some times and really dedicate it for AIB members and staff to be able to hear from and collaborate with our teachers.
Awesome. Any other last words from the good of this small group here?
Nope, I'm good to go. If no one else has any other last words, we will have, I think our final meeting is on June 11th
I think you're right.
of this year.
I think it is on June 11th. So
Yep.
we look forward to folks joining us on June 11th when we'll probably round out the year and think about things looking ahead to upcoming years, or the upcoming year with this pillar 2 committee. So we thank everybody who joined us on this rainy Tuesday. If you haven't gone out to vote yet, polls close at 8 p.m. So please make sure you go out and vote. And we hope everybody has a great rest of your evening.
Justin, did you have a final thing to say? I thought you unmuted.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Oh no, I was just muting myself back because there was a little noise in my back.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But no, I definitely appreciate the conversation. I love talks like this. I think that maybe this could be a good vehicle to encourage more teachers, like Pillar 2 specifically, be a good vehicle to kind of encourage more teacher discussion and surface some of those tough questions that highlight the angst that a lot of our educators are feeling across the state. So maybe that's something that we can consider, using our committee as a vehicle for. Was somebody about to say something?
I was going to say to you or Rachel or Justin, aren't the applications for advisory board member positions open until Friday?
Until next Friday, I think.
Not advisory. That's actually board members.
Or members.
okay.
Not
board
advisory.
members.
Yes. So there are 3 positions that are open for application that was extended. And then advisory committee, we have about 12 people whose terms will be ending June 30th. So we're working on that like as we speak. And we'll have some information hopefully on Thursday. And then we aim to have that ready to go in June, July to get recruitment for every pillar will have about 3 terms, and then each of our student members would be up for a new student to apply.
So there's our opportunities for people
Yes.
to join and have their voices heard.
Absolutely.
All right, you all enjoy, and we'll see you in a month.
Thank
Hi,
you.
everyone.
Bye, everyone. Cool.
One more.